Welcome to another episode of Adventure Riding TV. This morning we're in the Wildcat studio and we'll be taking a ride, Derek and I, to meet Bob Hogan. And Bob Hogan is a gentleman who's been in the motorcycle and trials riding industry, I want to say going back to the 50s. He's going to tell us his story and we're going to take a look around his shop. I know he has some Bultaco and Ossa vintage motorcycles that should be very interesting to look at, and he can tell us his story.
Probably the best day of the year in New England right here.
I started actually in Indian Orchard, and then was there a couple of years. Then a friend of mine that used to work at the Indian company bought a building in Springfield near the Indian factory, actually on a corner of Hancock and Tyler Street in Springfield. And Freddie Myers, his name was. He used to work at the Indian company. So I asked him, "What are you going to do with that building? You're a welder out back." He says, "Well, it's for rent." So we shook hands and agreed to pay so much per month rent, and I ran there for quite a few years. Then I moved over here to Agawam, right near what's called Riverside Park. It's Six Flags now, but been there ever since. Yeah, for I don't know, let's see, 1970. When at the Indian motorcycle factory, for instance, one of my jobs I loved was I just punched the time clock in, jump on a brand new Indian, and ride it all day long, testing it. And that was good. But in 1953, I was drafted into the Army, like during the Korean War. And when I got out in '55, I started my business. And Of course, I've been riding and racing since, well, professional racing I started in 1952. I had a Class C license. And I did hill climbing, short track racing, road racing, just about every aspect of motorcycling there is I did. And in fact, I still do. Some of my highlights was I trials riding in Canada. In 1970, I took second place national championship. In 1964, 65, and 66, I was New England Grand Champion trials rider. I think the biggest trial I ever won was the 2-day-long international trials in New Jersey in 1969 that was run by Sammy Miller, who was the greatest trials rider ever. 11 straight years he was considered the world's champion trials rider. So I went down to New Jersey. 125 experts entered it, 2 days long, and I was lucky I took first place on that. But I've taken New England Championship Hill Climb 250 class. 1 year, 64 I think it was, I not only took the New England Trials Championship, but took the Hill Climb Championship, second place in the New England Enduro Championship, and 38th in the Motocross Championship 250 expert class. I did a lot of different riding, all kinds. Sidecar racing, we did that for years. Both ice racing, road racing, enduro. Up in Canada, again, I went up there for a challenge they had in 72. I took second place in a Canadian challenge we had up there, 2-day-long endurance run, sidecar class. I've done all kinds of riding, racing, road riding. I say I've been doing that for, what, 60-something years now, 70 years. I graduated from high school, and my twin brother and myself both signed up to get a job at the Indian company. He got hired a couple months before I did, and we both worked there until we were drafted in '53. That was interesting. I had a good job. I was like a gopher. I would pick up parts, test motorcycles, do inventory. My twin brother did the maintenance and repair work part of the Indian company. So at one time, I was testing an Indian, and if anything happened to it, bring it back to the service department, and my twin brother had to fix it for me. Free, of course. It was the Indian company. But in fact, when I started my business, the Indian company came over to my shop and wanted me to take on the Indian franchise, but I didn't. I had British stuff then, but later on, after the AJS Matchless Triumph, Norton, I took on the Spanish motorcycle, Bultaco. Boy, that's I think one of the best machines made there. And even the new ones they're called Shurkos, them are trials jobs. Great machines. And I've met Senor Bolto, who started the business, and his nephew started with him, Oriol Bolto. In fact, in 1968, I entered a 2-day international endurance run that I got a gold medal on, and I beat Oriol Bolto, who was the one of the top expert trials rider and enduro rider of Spain. And it was interesting. The guy that took high point in that was an Englishman, then an American, and another Englishman, and then I came down about 9th in the gold medal class, which was a real rough thing to do. Seeing I was New England Trials champion, I love my Bultaco Trials motorcycle, which is called a Sherpa T, which stands for trials. So when I got to the enduros, Bultaco had what they call the Matador. And I didn't quite care for that as much as my trials job, of course. I was favoring that. So I took my Sherpa T trials job and modified it something like a Matador, a cross between a Matador and a trials job. And in 1968, when I won a gold medal and beat the Spanish riders with my modified trials job, they took pictures of it, copied it, and they called it the Alpina, which was my 15 minutes of fame. Well, the way they get the name Bultaco is Senor Bolto, who used to be an engineer and a backer of the Montessa motorcycles made in Spain. And he got into an argument about design or something, and his idea was, if you win a race on Sunday, you'll sell on Monday. And I think Dodge came out with that later on.
Okay.
But so they didn't agree with him, so he quit Montessa and started his own business in Bultaco. And Bultaco actually was the largest manufacturer of motorcycles in Spain, right in Barcelona, or as they say, Barcelona,
Okay.
Castilian Spanish. In the 60s, I hired photographers and recording guys to do a film on the Berkshire International Endurance Run. And I directed it, narrated it, paid for it and everything else, and starred in it. And it was called the Berkshire International Endurance Run. I had a gentleman, after I wrote the narration for it, had the television announcer do the speaking because he has such a good voice and everything else. Then I sold that film, half-hour long, 16mm colored sound movie for about the Berkshire International to an oil company, and they used it for their advertisement for best oil to use and all that. It's called Full Bore Oil out of Schenectady, New York. Now we can't find the films, but that was a good story about me entering that and winning a trophy on that one. That was good. It was called the Berkshire International. Just, no, half hour before World of Sports it was on, yes. That was back in, In fact, that day, that Wild World of Sports was Phil Hill's assault on Le Mans. That's when he entered the Le Mans race in France with a Ford and won first place. That was 24 hours. That was quite the... Boy, I wish we had recording back then so I could record that thing. But it was an interesting story on the Berkshire International, which later on became the first international 6-day endurance run held in the United States.
Oh, really?
Up in the Berkshires,
Right
yeah.
here in Massachusetts?
Yeah. And in fact, they've had 2 reunion rides since then, 20 years, 30 years later, and then, let's see, that was in 72, I think it was, at Berkshire International. But anyways, it was 2 reunions, and I've entered them both since then, and won medals on them again, just bronze medals, not as good as I used to be. The International 6-day endurance run is like the motorcycle Olympics. You go for 6 days through the wood, because I've entered 2-day endurance runs. National endurance run is 550 miles long. One year I entered out in the Michigan. It started right off in Lansing, Michigan, and 2 days later it ended. And then the next week there was the Canadian National Championship. I took 3rd place up there one year, and that was less mileage. That was only like 400 miles, 2 days.
Only 400 miles?
Only 400 miles, yeah. That's after getting conditioned, that's nothing. Then you go back to the local enduros, which are 70 to 100 miles long. It's nothing. The first international one I entered in Lansing, Michigan was around a Triumph 200cc Tiger Cub. But since then I've been riding Bultacos, yeah, which are very good. As I say, I've won a lot of championships with Bultacos. Boy, they're a good machine. I like the Sherpati, the trials job. That this guy from England, Sammy Miller, did the designing and engineering of that, which was, like I said before, he was 11 straight years the world's champion trials rider, which I think is in the Guinness Book of Record of anybody holding any championship consecutively for 11 years. It's fantastic. One year I talked Bultaco company into bringing him over and putting a school on trials and teaching it and then having a trials under Sammy Miller, which he did, and it was really interesting. Right here in Massachusetts he put it on too. But like I said, 1969 was the last one they did, and Sammy, 2 days long in Vernon, New Jersey at the Great Gorge ski area. And I had entered, I'm in the expert class, and I entered 125 guys in the expert class, and I beat them all. That was the biggest one I ever won. One time I entered the sidecar class up there. What it was the Canadians challenged the United States to go against them up there at the endurance run. It was only 1 day long, but we had about 15 sidecars go up there and entered against the Canadians. We all, first 8 places were Americans, and we trounced them. I came in second that year.
Okay.
Sidecar. Another guy, Bob Bean, his name was. He was a guy in a sidecar. It's a tough job, sidecar racer.
Were these sidecars that you fabricated yourself?
Yes, I built my own. Well, most of the guys did homemade sidecars. Yeah.
And at this point in time, was the guy who rode next to you referred to as the monkey?
Yes, he called a monkey. Yeah. And then we did. That was usually that sidecar was usually on the right hand side. It's funny when you go short track racing or ice racing in a circular thing, the sidecar is on the left hand side. They put it on for better handling, and that's really interesting the way you can engineer and design sidecars. Indian used to make sidecars here in Springfield.
Okay.
And they started in 1901. Boy, that's a long time ago. 50 years later is when I started working there.
So you were at the factory that is now apartments?
Yes. Yeah, right.
With the wooden floors and pillars? And
Oil-soaked wooden floors, yes, sure.
Oh, that's amazing.
It is, yeah. Well, it was really interesting. That actually, my twin brother was working down they had another branch of Indian, and it was on Worthington Street near Columbus Avenue in what they call the Myrick building. It's all torn down now, but that he used to work down there, and I used to work up at the actual factory. But, well, you know where Worthington Street, well, no, it'd be the 91.
Okay.
Actually, it'd be right in the middle of 91.
So it was removed to make way for 91?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. They used to be only on I think it was the third floor they had the Indian company on that, in the Myrick building.
About how many models of Indians do you know were they making back then? Did they have an expanded?
They were, well, when I was working there, no, they were only making the Indian Chief when I was working there, the 74 cubic or 80 cubic inch Chief. But they were still just then putting together the three-wheeler Servy cars for Indian too. They had a few of them, but they were basically the guy that took over controlling interest of the Indian stocks his name was Brockhouse from England, who owned the Royal Enfield motorcycles. And in my estimation, he helped run the Indian company out of business to bring his Royal Enfields and paint them red and call them Indians. And they took over. Yeah, he changed the name to Royal Enfield, and they were selling them there. They did that for a few years, then went out of business. I got a little niche in the motorcycle business, is the importer of the Ossa motorcycles and Bultaco motorcycles went out of business, and I went up to their building and bought all their parts. None of that, but I engineered and designed some parts for them, which, well, like, let's see here, I've got gaskets I make, and we print up, manufacture thousands at a time, then I sell them all over the world, which nobody can get a hold of these gaskets.
Yes,
because sure, that's for an Ossa right there. And we make them for Bultacos, Ossas. Actually used to make them for BMWs, Hadakas, whole bunch of different machines. Yeah, and top quality gaskets too, some of the best in the world. But also I got in contact with Allen Manufacturing Company, which their warehouse, their main office is in Connecticut, and had them I designed Allen wrenches and Allen screws that fit the Spanish motorcycles, and I sell them all over the world.
So were they a little bit different?
Yeah, well, just the metric size and everything else, and like the Allen wrenches, they used to make just like a T-handle Allen wrench, short. But if you're working on a side of a motorcycle where the foot brake is, a shift lever, the small wrench wouldn't fit good. You'd bang your hands. So I had them engineer it longer, like 6-8 inches long, so you wouldn't whack your hand together, and sell them for a tool for Bultacos and Ossas. Yeah.
Would it be okay if we took a look at one of the bikes, maybe?
Sure.
Tell us an example of a Bultaco?
We sure enough can. Oops, crunch, crunch. So this is a newer style trials job. They have no seat at all, and they only weigh, 108, 9 pounds, something like that. They're so light you can pick the whole machine up and carry it around, which makes it more agile. Now let's see if I can get on this thing here, balance it. Let's see if I can do it there. Whoop, come on, to the right. I usually go to the right here. I can calm down a little here. That's the way you do it now.
That's good.
These are yeah, better balanced machines.
That's real good.
Yeah, this is the newer style. They have Gas is another top quality Spanish machine. Montessa, Beta, there's a whole bunch of them, yeah. Honda came out with them for a while. They come out with such nice things nowadays. I don't know why we didn't think of it before. Like years ago, they used to make spokes that went from the rim to the hub and then bent over in the hub to catch on. Now they machine the hub so the spoke is actually straight. There's no bend to it, just an end to it there and it's straight, which makes it stronger and last longer instead of the fatigue bend turning of the spokes. They're really great to come out now. But yeah, liquid cooled, hydraulic, oh jeez. And they start up, CDI ignition, which means capacitor discharge ignition system. No points to go bad, nothing. They're really, really great machines. Come out with, like the English say, aluminum, well, to get the weight down. One of the reasons I started motorcycling is because my older brother John bought one in the 40s. And then my twin brother bought one, and I bought one, and my other brother Jimmy got one, and my younger brother Billy got one. The whole family were into motorcycles. And I just stayed in it all my life. And I even taught my wife how to ride. She became a very, very good motorcycle rider. She even entered competition, trials and enduros. She became an expert trials rider and a Class A enduro rider. And my older daughter used to go hill climbing with me. In fact, one year, at the end of the year, she finished 4th overall in the 125 class against the boys. She was a natural. Boy, she was good. Really good trials rider. But now my grandchildren even ride motorcycles. I don't think it'll be out of it. Once it's in your blood, you're stuck with it, I tell you. In New England, there used to be a lot of motorcycle manufacturing companies in New England. For instance, in Westfield, there was a guy named Augustus Pope who used to make the Pope motorcycle, and in Westfield, and they were for a while. They were really ahead of their time too, the Pope. And that same guy, he used to race bicycles, and he entered 360 big races and won 300 of them, which is fantastic. He also started an electric car business in Hartford, Connecticut, or just outside of Hartford, Connecticut, a Pope car. Later on, when they were making the motorcycles and bicycles in Westfield, they changed the name from Pope to Columbia, which everybody has heard of, the Columbia moped. Way back in the 70s when we had that gas crisis, I went over to Columbia and said, I'll buy all your mopeds. And they said, well, we got a warehouse full of them too. I said, I'll buy them all. So I did. And boy, did I sell a bunch of them that year. One day alone, believe it or not, I sold 17 brand new scooters in one day, mopeds in one day. That was the biggest ever. That's when I had a lot of guys working for me in the business here. Now we're down small, but we still sell a lot of the Spanish motorcycle parts all over the world. From Australia to Canada to India.
From out of here?
Oh yeah,
really?
Over even back to Spain. Yeah, because, well, years ago there was, believe it or not, just two classes of people in Spain, rich and poor.
Yeah.
And the poor people couldn't afford motorcycles, but 80% of the manufacture went out of the country of Spain. And about 60% of that was to the United States.
Yeah.
So we were the biggest thing. Now that people buy parts back to Spain, they got money and they can, I remember when I was young, all that sort of stuff. All right, but as I say, I've been here in Agawam It's on Main Street in Agawam, right across from Six Flags Amusement Park for 40 some odd years now. And we're open Mondays, Tuesdays, Thursdays, Fridays, and Saturdays from 9 o'clock in the morning until 5 in the afternoon. Actually, Monday, Tuesdays, and Fridays until 7:30 at night. But we're closed on Wednesdays and Sundays. But we still like to drive our motorcycle back and forth to work and enjoy all kinds of enduros, hill climbs, trials. Still do it to this day. We have a lot of fun doing it. Well, actually, it's a funny thing you call right now. I got people in doing a television review right now of my shop, so we can go on international and national television, yes. Just, it's funny, in fact, as I'm talking right now, they're videotaping it right now for things, so I trying to get, from Holyoke, trying to get me on. He's going to give me exposure on television, this thing and that thing. He said, I've seen your thing on. So it sort of stopped them when I said they're doing it right now in front of me.